And as it turns out, the crew could never figure out the correct exit. Because finally this imminent collision happened around the fourth exit. It seems that at this time there were disturbances and misunderstandings in the communication between the watchtower and the pilot. The KLM pilot asked his co-pilot to signal to the control tower that they were ready for takeoff and asked for clearance. Then the control tower allowed them to clear the plane only within the limits of its exit route along with the necessary instructions after takeoff. This was not a clear clearance for an actual flight. "We're taking off now," said the co-pilot, and the control tower replied, "Okay." It seems that the flight crew wanted to tell the watchtower that they were taking off, while the control tower had given them permission to leave and take off from their current position and expected them to wait for permission to fly. The watchtower continued, "Be ready for flight, call you back." As recorded in the history, the unfortunate and terrible accident of Tenerife Airport took place at this very moment. A radio call from Pan American was made to the control tower at the same time, containing the message, "We are still moving, taxi," on the runway. This call caused radio interference. Therefore, the last words of the watchtower never reached the ears of the co-pilot of the KLM plane. The KLM plane has started taking off without a clear clearance. The Pan American flight was unable to find its desired exit, number 3, and diverted to exit number 4 instead. Loss of two very important radio messages, due to the fact that both messages were sent exactly at the same time and caused mutual interference, which resulted in meaningless messages being broadcast with hissing and crackling sound, using non-standard responses such as, "Okay." Due to the limited capacity, the airport has been forced to accommodate a number of giant planes beyond its capacity. The news of the drastic changes that took place at Tenerife Airport after this incident spread all over the world. Today, aviation authorities insist on using standard phrases instead of colloquial phrases in radio conversations. For example, the phrase, "take OFF," will not be spoken until the actual flight permission is given. The word, "departure," is used instead for permission to leave. In the following year, 1978, Tenerife's second-largest airport was opened. Reina Sofia Airport was much bigger and covered international flights, while the Los Rodes Airport operated only in the field of domestic and inter-island flights. Also, a ground radar was installed at Los Rodos Airport. Also, the watchtower had lost Pan American Flight's most important information about their location. If these two messages had reached the ears of their audience, the KLM plane could have cancelled its takeoff. Also, due to heavy fog, the planes could not see each other and remained hidden from the control tower. In addition, Los Rodes Airport was not equipped with ground-based radar. The control tower had asked the Pan American pilot to report to them after leaving the runway. "Okay," replied the pilot. "We will let you know when we are off the runway." After hearing this conversation, the KLM flight engineer expressed concern about the position of the other plane. However, the KLM pilot thought they had received clearance and continued along the runway. As the two planes approached each other, one by one the crew saw the landing lights of the front plane peeking through the fog. The Pan American pilot tried his best to quickly change direction and divert to the fourth exit. The KLM pilot was also trying to complete a steep climb with all his strength, which resulted in the tail of the plane scraping the runway for 65 feet. In fact, the KLM plane separated from the ground, but the body of the Pan American plane, which was under it, disintegrated the KLM plane. Casualties of the Tenerife Airport accident were terrible. All 234 passengers and 14 crew members died from the KLM plane. 326 passengers and 9 flight crew from the Pan American plane were killed by the explosion and 56 passengers and 5 flight crew got out of this plane alive. Some of the people who survived and were taken to the runway were killed by grenade launchers that were fired from the engines of the Boeing 747, which were still running after the impact. Firefighters initially rushed to the KLM plane, with the hope that only one plane was involved due to the thick fog. Ironically, this was the plane that left no survivors. Investigation began at Tenerife Airport, with a team of 70 investigators.